hate it.
Jeff likes the next part best.
Was that the big intro?
The creaky door sound.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is.
Yep.
Well, yeah, hats off to you guys. You've been very, very consistent having this show. It's great.
We were
out there.
So it's been interesting the past probably 2 months now. We've had an incredible interest in people coming to us wanting to be on the show. And we're actually scheduling like well into Q1 right now. Usually we're only a month or two ahead. Yeah, sometimes it's like, it's Tuesday. We're gonna get here on Friday, but it's been a while since we've been in that position. But,
yeah, it has been a while.
But we were also shown or heard about some of the other places where people can advertise in the industry, and the pricing and all was eye-opening for me. And it really caught Jeff and me, not thinking like, we should raise our price or anything like that, but we were thinking, why have we lasted this long, and why have others like, there's a number of other automotive communities that haven't. They've either sold or gotten disenchanted with it all or whatever. And why have we done it? And we came to the same theory that this isn't a full-time job for us. Mm-hmm. We do it as a passion, as a hobby. And I guess as long as we're in the car business, we'll just keep on rolling.
Yep. Well, there's definitely no shortage of topics to bring to the industry and chat about. It's a very fluid and dynamic industry. And obviously we see that a lot with the content that comes through DealerRater and cars. And so keeping up with the latest and greatest is important. And it takes almost another part-time job to keep up with what's going on in the industry, but you have to do a great job. Keep the forum open for all sorts of great discussions.
It's not like things are moving faster and faster.
Yeah.
But here comes Jeff's favorite noise.
No. One of these days we're going to change it.
That is a good noise. Yeah.
Maybe for 2023.
26. We'll change it then.
No. You're going to make me suffer.
The fact that you suffer makes me like it that much more.
I know. I should quit bitching about it.
So Jamie, welcome back.
Thank you. It's great to be back. I think the last time I was here, I was talking about 10 million reviews. I think was the
milestone.
Here chatting with you guys. So yeah, I mean it's a lot's evolved in the meantime, but no, it's fun. It's always good to be back chatting with you guys, and you're the OGs of the industry. And just as I was thinking about 20 years for,
I think you're the bigger OG today.
And 17 years for DealerRefresh too. I mean, we've been on this journey together for 17 of the 20 years. So it's pretty fun to think back across all those years and how far we've come. It's certainly been a long way for us. I know you guys have evolved a lot too.
How far DealerRater has come?
It's pretty incredible.
Years, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in a lot of metrics. I mean, I just, thinking back from review number 1 that Chip wrote on the site that I checked the other day, was posted on December 28th, 2002. That was review number 1. After he'd finished sort of coding up the site, making sure that it was ready to start accepting content, he put his first review up there. It was I think BMW Gallery of Norwell, which I think is now South Shore BMW. But it's been years since I read his review. It's not on the site anymore because I forgot when it was, but Chip soon instituted a rule that DealerRater employees, in addition to dealership employees, weren't eligible to post content on DealerRater. So it got taken down, but it's still in the database. And it's just it was fascinating.
Is it printed and hanging on a wall somewhere?
If it's not, it
should be.
Maybe that's a good Christmas present.
Is it right next to your first $1 earned?
I'll print it out.
Do you still speak with Chip?
I do. Yeah, he's my brother-in-law. So
wow, there you go.
We're close, and
I forgot about that.
He and his wife are awesome aunt and uncle for my two boys who love going and hanging out. Chip and his wife love to go fish and spend a lot of time on their boat during the season. So takes our kids out there, and Chip's still into the technology and it's got all the cool gadgets and stuff. So we definitely keep in touch. Give him an update on DealerRater.
Took me a while to figure out if he was a good guy or not. I remember when our dealership got the very first review, and I was like, "What is this website? What is going on here?" So I start going through the site to try and find a phone number, and I was like, "I want to find out what this is all about." Again, this never really had reviews back then, and picked up the phone and dialed the numbers, and Chip answered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was customer
and I went from full concern and not disgust, but maybe a little bit of hatred for it all, because we had like 2 reviews on there that I wasn't aware of, and they weren't great reviews. And I think we spoke for maybe 45 minutes to an hour, and within that time, he turned it around and made me plug in the light bulb, screw in the light bulb. It's like, oh, all right, I see it. Let's see where this goes.
He had a lot of long conversations with operators back in those days, because he was genuinely interested to learn and get feedback and figure out what the right sort of balance was of making sure that he generated sort of fairness and transparency with the site, give dealers a chance to respond, trying to figure out. I mean, back in those days, it was TripAdvisor and maybe a couple other sites that were actively soliciting consumer reviews. I mean, Google wasn't collecting reviews back then. Mm-hmm. Yelp wasn't a company until 2004. So there wasn't a lot of sort of guideposts for how you do this, right? How do you do it in a way to be responsible and fair and transparent? And
a lot of them still haven't figured that out.
Yeah. It's definitely an evolving ecosystem, right? And I think we've seen a lot over the 20 years since since Chip sort of kind of really first dug into it. But I think and I went back and I looked at the first review that he wrote, and it was, a story of how things started off well and then took a bad turn and then ended up being great. And I think it was that polarizing experience that he had that sort of led him to he went home saying, I got to share this. Like, I have to go tell people about this. Where do I go? I can't find anywhere to write it. Like, I could put it in a forum, but that may only last as long as that particular thread is active. And so, I think he just said, let me just have my own blog where that I can control. And he bought, a ton of different variations on dealer ratings, dealer reviews, DealerRater, and landed on DealerRater and sort of spun up a little blog. And it was just a passion project for him. And he shared it on automotive enthusiast forums and said, hey, anyone who just had experience at a dealership, come here. And he put the link to his site and, got 1 or 2 reviews a day maybe, and was celebrating those. And And then to think, fast forward to today where we collect over 100,000 a month and over 1 million in a year. I mean, it's pretty surreal because reviews were not much back then.
How did it grow back then? Was it just more organic? I mean, I should say maybe prior to the Cars.com acquisition and getting, some type of automated service to get the consumer to review. But prior, leading up to that, what was the one channel that maybe gave it the most growth?
Well, before we even came up with the idea, or I should say Chip, I sort of jumped in around the time when he was starting to think about how to turn into a business and start to monetize the content that we had, or at least turn the platform into more of a content marketing platform for dealers so they could, photos and amenities and inventory and things like that. He was just, out there he was posting on automotive forums. He was also partnered up with a website called autospies.com.
Yeah, that was the other side. Yeah.
Don Buffamonte. So it was kind of a partnership that Chip and Don had for years. And Chip would go to all the new car shows and take photos. I think he would sort of advertise DealerRater there. So there was a symbiotic relationship there as well. Yeah, the way back at Judas Pie.
Nice, Drew.
Was on there a couple of days ago. So yeah,
especially
it was like
I used Camel.
Yeah, it was funny because I think I had Auto Spies in my RSS feed, prior to even knowing about DealerRater. Yeah. So it was funny whenever he and I were on the phone and he was like, well, it's sort of like the other side of the business. I'm like, what? It's pretty neat.
I mean, Auto Spies pushed, they had a pretty significant amount of traffic. I think they still do.
They did.
I think Don is still
I haven't been on it forever, so it's still up.
I believe so. I haven't been on there in a while, but there was.
Well, their biggest thing was they were able to get photos of vehicles whenever they're being test driven before they've even been released to the market or released to the news. So they'd have, a lot of times they put like the weird painting or camouflage on the vehicles.
Yeah.
And I guess there's probably a couple of different test tracks that they were able to grab those the photos of those vehicles, which sort of give you an idea of maybe how the body shape was going to change up for the next year.
Yep.
There you go.
So it is still up and running. That's cool, man. That's very cool. I'll have to check it out afterwards.
It looks slightly dated.
It does a little. I was going to say, is this the Wayback Machine? Or
I hope that
pulled this up.
I hope the dated look comes back. We all go back down to like the Craigslist look.
That is kind of a Web 1 look where it's just sort of read only.
In some ways, I think it was easier to use.
Well, it's funny you pull that up, Alex. I was going on the Wayback Machine. I found an old DealerRater, the old homepage from 2002, 3, 4, and it was very similar to Auto Spy. So I think he would sort of cross promote DealerRater on that site as well. So, but anyway,
back he ran ads
about how so it really started. I mean, Chip was just kind of focused on collecting content in those early days, and that was, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years of just collecting content. And there was a little bit of monetization through AdSense. DealerRater was a beta site for AdSense back in 2003. I think AdSense launched in 2003, so they're doing some.
Those were some fun years, man.
There was a lot of new stuff.
I know. I missed that time of the year.
That was just in the transition from like Web 1 to Web 2, when we're used to kind of seeing everything in sort of this magazine, like kind of this, skeuomorphic format online. Take a newspaper, put it online. You can just read it. And then this transition to Web 2, which is sort of read write, which is where we are now, where you can, sign up for a user account or interact with ads or post content, all that kind of stuff. So that was all pretty nascent at the beginning back in 2002.
From Blackberries to iPhones.
Is that going to mean Web 3 will be the metaverse?
Oh,
yeah. Well,
that's getting crushed. At least right now.
Web 3 is the next, right? That's if Web 1 is like read only, and Web 2 is read write. Web 3 is read, write, and own, right? So you sort of you own a piece of whatever sort of protocol through token governance and all that stuff. But that's a whole nother DealerRefresh show. But
one I'm not going to have anytime soon.
That is the step into the metaverse.
What was the first metaverse style? What was that called? Where you could purchase, online real estate. God, something Life. Second Life?
God, there was
probably Second Life.
And I remember a lot. Yeah, even a lot of the manufacturers, bought Second Life real estate. And they had it at one or two of them had it like at the booths at NADA. Obviously it was way before its time, but I do remember that, and that was supposed to be the next big thing. It'd be fun to go back and be able to remember all the different channels or marketing channels that were supposed to be the next big thing that just never turned out. Or sometimes it's not even about. It's really more about timing, because Alex probably knows where I'm going to go with this, because we have an article, we have a thread over on DealerRefresh that is probably 16 years old, maybe not quite, maybe at least 15, that Phil Payton had started around QR codes. I know we brought this up a couple times on the show, but Alex with Freakin' Tech just introduced a new product, and one of the core components, I shouldn't say core components, but one of the ways of utilizing it is using the QR code. And I was like, dude, that's so funny. You see more QR codes, now than what you did obviously 13 to 15 years ago. And everyone thought it was going to be something huge. This is going to be the next way to push media. And of course, it just sort of fell flat on its face. And now here we are. And I think the pandemic probably helped push that.
If it weren't for the pandemic, I would not have been on board with that.
I think, I guess just the ease of publishing your menus online, no touch and all that crap.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. They make a comeback. I mean, you see them more now across
restaurants.
Oh,
yeah. Even text messaging. Text messaging was like the next big thing.
Over the top TVs. Like I see the ads, the QR codes all the time on Hulu ads and stuff like that.
Yeah. And it's easy to create a QR code too. In fact, we see a lot of dealers doing that to send people to the, write a review page on DealerRater, Google, or whatever.
It's now a right click option on my computer. To right click in the browser and it says create QR code for this page.
You're right. Yeah, for like bookmarks and such. Yeah.
And it's also built into native phone. It's built into the native camera technology now.
Mm-hmm.
So you your camera.
It'll pull up, open in Safari or whatever. So maybe obviously it was ahead of its time. Different channels are, but it just needed more time for maybe technology to catch up to make it more efficient.
Or they could have gone the DealerRater route, which I still believe that DealerRater has the most brilliant way of getting dealer adoption. Like there was no better way to appeal to dealers than say you could buy your competitors' real estate.
Which when I was at my one, we exercised a lot.
Yeah, I mean that's what happened in Hampton Roads where I was. I
think that pissed off a lot of people as well.
Yeah, y'all bought other dealers' real estate. You didn't buy checkered flags. Thank you.
That's because I liked you.
We were like, okay, we have to do this now. And we went and bought priorities and first teams. And
we sort of drug your group into doing reviews.
You sure did.
Because I remember you would be so pissed off. I was like, dude, why are you doing this to me?
Those were. Great. I mean, that was brilliant. It's funny. We've moved a little bit away from that model. We don't sell those necessarily these days. I mean, dealers who are engaged with our platform get that self ad space. Otherwise, it's a Google ad. But I mean that, and you asked earlier, Jeff, around how sort of the dealer adoption around DealerRater spun up, it was around, kind of going in and getting a couple dealers in a market to embrace the power of DealerRater, get the certified dealer badge on their page and the photos and amenities, and then go to other dealers and say, hey, look at what your competitor is doing. This is what they look like. If I Google your dealership's name, this is what pops up. It's your DealerRater page. And this is what yours looks like now, but it can look like this. You can do better at, sort of marketing your business, telling your local story. And credit to Matt Lamoureux and Heather McKinnon in those early days. Was the first sales hire for Chip. Chip, it's been a few years out, not a few years, probably a few months actually. Talking to dealers when the first concept of the old core product we had, which is the certified dealer program, came out, and then he hired Matt from Acton Toyota, and I think they were very early adopters of DealerRater, and Matt was there, very progressive. You guys knew Matt, and came on and just he and Heather
crushed it.
Took off across the country.
Him and Heather, they crushed it.
They really did. Yeah, I give them a ton of credit for building DealerRater in those early days to sort of the critical mass of dealers, because when they were engaged with the platform, it was more incentive for them to go to their customers and ask them to share feedback on DealerRater, so that each dealership that we brought on as a customer was sort of a little mini marketing machine for DealerRater. They would put a logo on their website and built the testimonial widget that allowed positive reviews to display on the dealer website and stuff like that. So it was it was the beginnings of back in those early days, sort of a content marketing opportunity for dealers. And there were good and bad reviews, and we showed everything on the site, but wanted to make sure that the dealers who were doing really well in their markets got the credit for that.
And that's when you started the awards.
And that's Dealer of the Year. Yeah. Once we had a critical mass of content, and then now we could run calculators, figure out the most fair way to build an algorithm that takes into account both score and volume, right? Because you didn't want one dealer that got 1 5-star review to beat a dealer that had 100 reviews and a 4.9, right? So how do you balance that and make it fair? Because the dealer with the 4.9 should probably win. We have more evidence that they're a better dealer across 100 customer comments than that one dealer with 1 5-star review. So, so we, Chip, I think probably the thing that he misses the least about not being involved with DealerRater these days is the annual calculation of the dealer.
That should be almost automatic now. You should have some type of algorithm and calculation that automatically does that for you each year.
He used to.
Those weren't pay to play.
I know. Said do not disturb for 3 days while he was in there. So, spreadsheet models, and it's a little bit better now, but it's still we spend a lot of time making sure that we've got it right, because it means a lot to dealers, and the awards are bigger than ever now. Obviously, we get over a million reviews, so it's based on a ton of content across. On an annual basis, nearly 20,000 dealers are eligible to win the award across franchise and indies. So, we're expanding the eligibility and created a couple new awards last year for regional categories, but we still sort of follow the traditional model of best in brand and then brand state. So we go through all the brands based on state as well. So. And we have the Consumer Satisfaction Award, which is, again, based on the same algorithm, but it's a broader base of viewers that we want to recognize for providing great experience that weren't necessarily like the top for that particular brand in the state, because there are a lot of dealers.
Yeah, we used to win, I guess, for the state every year, both awards, but we haven't won the DealerRater of the Year award for I think maybe 2 or 3 years, but we've still only won the Satisfaction Award.
Yeah, and that's
cool. You can throw it up on the website. We've used them in our signature lines, it's great for marketing for sure.
Yeah, you use
I mean,
it as
I don't, yeah, I don't know how much it, I'm always curious, like what type of impact does it really have? But anytime you can get a positive message out there, why not take advantage of it?
Yeah. Well, I think,
So how many reviews are coming in now on a daily or weekly basis? Have you seen an uptick over the past 2 or 3 years? Has there ever been a decline?
It's been pretty much up and to the right since 2002. Last year was our biggest year yet for reviews. I think we were at 1.2 million last year.
Okay.
And we're on track to come out around the same, maybe exceed a little bit. The volume has fallen off a little bit, as you might expect on the sales side, because sales volume is down. But
True,
we've
that
also
makes
seen a
sense.
shift to the service side of the business too. So we typically see like 68% sales and 32% or so for service, and that's shifted a bit to like I don't
I
know,
would think close to 50-50.
30, 62. And so
Okay.
it is sort of evening out a bit just because of the natural volume of customers coming into service. Although it's a lot harder to get a review on a service visit than it is on sales, because you got to leverage that excitement from someone who just bought a new car to get them to the site to write a review, which is a little
I
bit
don't know
tougher.
why, man. Those oil changes are exciting.
I don't know. We've always done probably better with service reviews than sales reviews, but every year, usually an NADA or a digital dealer, how many dinners would Chip invite us to, Jamie? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that was one thing I always looked forward to, was sitting down with everybody from the DR crew and have a dinner. We would usually go to that restaurant. I forget what it was called, Steak or Stack. It was in the
It was Stack. It's in is that an MGM or something?
yeah, no, it's not MGM. It's the other one that digital dealer would always be at.
The Mirage.
God, the Mirage.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, that's it.
yeah.
I remember
It's like
that.
one of my favorite steakhouses. I like that
Yeah,
place.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
remember we were all having dinner, and this many years ago, and I think at that time we were trying to figure out. I remember having the conversation with Chip. I was like, we need to figure out how to easily obtain. Yeah, Chris has got it. How to easily obtain reviews from the service department. She was like, "Yeah, I'm working on that right now." It's like, man, you get that. That could be a nice little floodgate of reviews coming in for each dealership. So it's cool that you guys were able to figure that out.
Well, you
Yeah.
all have obviously been an innovation right from the get-go. What are some big innovations that DealerRater's seen, and just reminiscing on the last 20 years?
Oh man, within the DealerRater and reviews universe, I think something that was a pretty significant add and pivot for us was introducing employee profiles to the site. The ability for employees to have their own profile page and then get individually rated um, by consumers. And I think that's, you don't get that with Google or Yelp or Facebook. And so I think for us, since we're laser focused on automotive, we can do things with our site, with the way that we ask for content, um, that just allows us to go deeper and provide more feedback and intelligence back to the dealers so they can learn and grow. And so I think when we introduced employee profiles, I think it was maybe 2009 that we did that, and then soon after allowed them to be individually rated on the site. I think that
Mm-hmm.
opened up a whole new world of dealership employees that were now sort of empowered to develop their brand and develop their reputation. And it's a way for employees to say, "Hey, look, go to my page, look at me. This is the level of customer service that I provide to
Yeah.
consumers every day." And it's your own sort of brag book.
Look at Drew having an opposing view on that.
Well, I can see from Drew's standpoint where he's overseeing a lot of stores that it could be a lot of work for him. Whereas, at your store, Jeff, it might be a little easier.
Oh yeah. No, I was always a big proponent of it. I think it made sense. The biggest question, always, at least in the very beginning, was like, all right, so who owns the reviews? Because, we have to agree that a lot of dealerships sort of have that revolving door. And, are you reviewing the salesperson alone or reviewing the salesperson and the dealership? And should the salesperson be able to take those reviews if they go to another dealership? Probably not. But they also you could use that as great leverage to keep people at the dealership. If I've been at the dealership for 3 or 4 years and I've got hundreds of positive reviews, if I leave, well, I got to start all over again. If I leave and go to another dealership, now I got to start all over again. So, one of my thoughts was how could the dealership leverage that in order to cut back on that revolving door in the sales department?
Right. Yeah, and that's something that we've been working through for a while now, because we, in the early days, our philosophy, which really hasn't changed much since then, although we're trying to think of ways to be fair, is that the review that's written about the dealership belongs to the dealership, and the employee is tagged on that review. But if they leave the dealership or if they go somewhere else, it doesn't go with them, because the review itself is about the dealership experience. So the business sort of quote unquote owns that review. But to your point, Jeff, I think that's, from an employee's perspective, is you spend years building up your reputation at this dealership, and now you go somewhere else and you've got to start from scratch. So we're trying to think of thoughtful ways to, is there a way for us to have some sort of feature on that page that, references their reputation at another dealership, or this is sort of, we can't bring those reviews over and have them on that page. It would be confusing for the consumer. But is there a way that we can sort of make at least a component of that portable, in the sense that, while you don't have those same dealership reviews from the old dealership on that page, there's still some recognition of the work that you've put into developing your brand and your professional profile. So, we've, to this point, sort of sided sort of on the retention tool side, as Jake just mentioned, right? Which, like, you spend a lot of time as an employee, as a salesperson, building your reputation, becoming a certified employee. You have all, 5 stars with 1,000 reviews. And that is attached to your persona at that dealership. And if you leave, you've got to start over. And I think that's, we've heard from dealers that they do see that as a retention tool, that it allows them to keep their best. So I think it just depends on how the dealer decides to use it. And to Drew's point about, the management, the individual employees can manage their profiles if the admins want them to or let them to, or it could all be, handled centrally through someone at the dealership, or, our team can help to manage it as well. So there are, a few different options for how you can manage it. If it's something that you think is helpful to your people, because it's not just about, them and their brands. It's also the engagement in the review collection process that benefits the dealership in general, right? Because if they're out asking for reviews, those are reviews that are going to come into the dealership's page, whether it's DealerRater, Google, Facebook.
The engineering challenge in that could be pretty fantastic if it were pulled off for the industry as a whole. Like, you think of softwares that try to take a customer across multiple rooftops. Think of CRM systems, for example. The databases to date in those tools have basically been rooftop focused. So if a salesperson tries to go from, younger Toyota to Mercedes-Benz of Hagerstown, all under the same group, you've got to, enter them in as a ghost user basically, so they can go sell a Mercedes if they work at a Toyota store or whatever. And it's been a challenge for years to the industry to try and break down those, they're called tenancy models here, where you can actually appeal to a group. But in your case, Jamie, with DealerRater, you'd be looking at like the whole nation. And it would be pretty spectacular if somebody had a database solution that allowed the migration of customers and dealership employees and was able to track that. And that it'd be quite a feat, is all I'm saying.
Dreaming big.
Yep.
Yeah. We have to build a whole new team for that. But I think, I mean, there is a lot of opportunity there to get better at how we allow interaction and communication and collaboration across all the folks within the industry. I mean, to Drew's point, I mean, I think there's blockchain. Yeah, it's actually an interesting use case.
Something you know a bit about, right?
I mean, there's I think what we're always sort of hunting for are ways to make the dealership process more efficient and to better engage the salespeople in the customer experience and feedback process. How do we engage employees to feel like they have some skin in the game, and when they create a great customer experience, that they can invite their customers to go online and share that feedback, whether it be DealerRater, Cars.com, Google, Facebook, et cetera. Because the flywheel of customer experience and feedback, I think, will just continue to spin faster and faster. And a lot of the time we're spending on the DealerRater side these days is figuring out how to better leverage Cars.com and the 27 million shoppers on Cars.com each month to really own voice of the customer in automotive. And this goes beyond the salesperson profile discussion and into how do we create more intelligence and collect more feedback from shoppers and visitors to cars beyond just the DealerRater.com website. I mean, we didn't create DealerRater.com to just have the content and the capabilities exist on that site forever and ever. It was meant to really sort of plug into a larger ecosystem, a larger marketplace that helped to just improve the pace of collection for feedback, and then we can leverage that data to provide insights back to dealers, to arm our reps with more sort of proactive data to say, here's where you're falling short, here's where you're doing well. We're starting to score dealers on things like dealership response time for leads and the trade-in experience. And we just launched instant offer on Cars.com through AccuTrade. And how is that experience? And how are the dealers honoring the instant offer price? And using DealerRater as more of a user-generated content engine to drive intelligence collection at scale that allows us to then use that data to curate the cars marketplace and have it sort of stand apart from others that are sort of more the aggregators that reward this race to the bottom. Cars wants to enable dealers to compete on dimensions other than price. So that's an innovation I think that we're right in the midst of now with a major unlock, is thinking about how do we use our capabilities and all of the work we've done on content collection and content moderation to get that flywheel to spin faster. And I think now with the addition of AccuTrade and Credit IQ, we have all these other dimensions of a true modern retailing experience that we can get feedback from dealers on. And so I think that's where it sort of talk about innovations, right? We're in the midst of a big one here where we're thinking more about not just the next incremental review that comes through DealerRater.com, but all the different channels that we can collect feedback around voice of the customer in automotive and be that center of gravity for feedback within the industry. Because as I said earlier, this is our specialty. We specialize in automotive. We can ask about things like price transparency and speed of transaction and financing experience that you're not going to necessarily get out of Google because they're industry agnostic. So
yeah. Alex, what was the question around OEMs? And I think Drew brought up.
Yeah, it looked like there were two, one from Drew and one from Chris Leslie. So first one from Drew about working with the OEMs to make a better CSI, I think is what he's implying.
Yeah, I really thought DealerRater would have already worked on that.
Yeah, I think just in the priority mix that has not hit the top yet, but I can tell you that it's something that we're thinking about deeply for next year, especially as we build up our capabilities on the Cars Inc. side around OEM discussions and expertise. I think CSI is an industry or I guess it is an industry, let's call it that, that's ripe for disruption. No one likes it. And I think DealerRater is pretty centrally positioned as a content collection engine that can just make it easier and more fun and something that we can really deploy at scale to collect feedback that sort of allows for better visibility with that feedback, right? Because I mean, CSI obviously kind of goes into a black box, and dealerships sort of understand the game that they need to play to get good CSI scores, and I don't think the whole CSI system, I don't think anyone would disagree, is set up in a fair way that rewards dealers for great customer experience. I think it's easily gamed. I just don't think the OEMs have a great alternative. I think we represent that, and I think that's if you sort of looked ahead at our plans into next year, it's around now how do we collect more data at scale, but beyond that, how do we get better at reputation intelligence? Because it's not just collecting the data, it's about providing the intelligence back to the OEMs. It says these are things that dealerships are good at, and these are things that they're not. Oh, and by the way, here's what competing brands are doing better than you. And I think that's there's Drew's.
Yeah,
that's
Drew's
great.
They figured out how to game it.
Yeah. So I think that to me is sort of the kind of holy grail of what we're doing. And it's not a new concept to us. It's something that, gosh, we've been keeping our eye on for a while. For a number of reasons, we've stayed at the tier 2, tier 3 level. But huge opportunity for us where I think we can go a lot deeper.
And, maybe there's some people at the OEMs that don't want to change it. When you have 100%.
I don't know.
Looks good.
I think Jamie made the right statements. They haven't been presented with any alternatives. The OEMs don't innovate retail. They innovate building vehicles, but they don't. When it comes to retail, they just choose from the options that are present.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
True.
Yeah.
And
I think it's.
That's where I definitely want to transition to, Drew. Talk about some FTC stuff.
We can certainly jump into that. I mean, that would definitely be a hour 2 conversation if we had extended time. But
let's skirt it.
Well, I mean, look, on the FTC point, if that's where we kind of want to roll to next.
Please.
I think the FTC has certainly created a lot of swirl this year in automotive, and there's been a lot of um, guidance and rules proposed, et cetera. From the DealerRater perspective, we've been focusing more on some of the guidance that the FTC put out there early in 22 or earlier this year around collecting, publishing, moderating review content. And I see sort of three separate buckets around FTC and how it impacts automotive. The first is the reviews guidance piece that was sort of kind of sparked from this FTC, the Fashion Nova fine in November of last year. And that's a piece I can certainly focus on and chat a little
What
bit.
was that fine, Jamie?
So Fashion Nova is an online retailer that was fined by the FTC. It was $42 million for essentially misleading customers and suppressing negative reviews through a content collection engine that they had on their website. So essentially what they were doing was inviting customers to share feedback on the company through their website. And they were intentionally suppressing the negative reviews. And when they displayed the customer reviews on their website, they said, these are all of our reviews. It's a 5.0. They're all positive. Look how great we are. And the FTC, I don't know the details of how it was brought to their attention, but said, well, wait a minute, you have all these negative reviews as well. And maybe it was brought to light through customer or through consumer complaints through FTC, which is typically how these issues get raised to them. And they said, well, you can't do that. You're misleading the customers. You are not a 5.0 business. You're something else. And so, this particular retailer agreed to a fine. And I think that sparked a rewrite, or maybe just a right, because the guidelines around reviews and what you can or can't sort of post and how you moderate and how you publish and collect had been a little bit murky as far as guidance from the FTC. And so they published something in January of this year that said, this is sort of how these are the best practices that we see. And we want you to make sure that you are following these guidelines, whether you are a website or a platform or someone who's otherwise publishing reviews. And I think, and I just saw the question that Drew popped up, and I'll address that in a second. I think it's a good one. The nuance here is that, and I think what the FTC is after is sort of gross misrepresentation of customer feedback on your website, right? So if you have a reviews page on your website that says, this is what everyone is saying about us. These are all of our reviews. We are a 5.0 store. Look how great we are. And that's not the case. You may want to rethink, and again, not legal advice. I'm not an attorney, but you may want to rethink how you're displaying those reviews on your website.
Yeah, $42 million will make you think that way, huh?
Yeah. Drew mentioned the DR API, and said yes. So you can, if you want to take the conservative approach and have all of your reviews, good and bad, post on your website, you can absolutely do that. I think there's this distinction to be made between sort of the sort of categorization of these reviews as like, these are all of the reviews. Yes, exactly, Drew. That's just where I was going to go with this, right? Which is, businesses have been using customer testimonials to power their marketing since literally the beginning of time. So the FTC, and again, not legal advice, it is, in our estimation, not saying you can't use any testimonials at any point, anywhere to promote your business. What they're saying is just make sure that you are accurate in how you represent that feedback online. So I think if you have a web page that says customer testimonials, well, those are testimonials. You don't have a negative testimony. Like a negative review is not a testimonial, right? So if you call the reviews that you're posting online as testimonials, that to us feels fair. And again, if the dealership wants to be overly conservative, I'd say, get an attorney, look at the FTC, do what you think you need to do to get comfortable with that. But that seems to us, based on the actions that we've seen from the FTC and the guidance that they provided, is is the spirit of what they're looking for when it comes to displaying customer testimonials on your website.
So it's basically just what's the content and the verbiage around the presentation of the reviews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
It's
I think that,
fix.
Again, it's not specific to automotive. Yeah, thanks, Drew. We get in trouble with our legal department. Yeah,
not like you work at a publicly traded company. Nothing to worry about.
we appreciate that.
Too many podcasts. Not legal advice, not financial advice. And look, this is not just specific to automotive too. This is, you find this across the gamut with all businesses and all websites and all mediums, TV, radio, digital ads, et cetera. So anyway, so that was sort of the incident that sort of sparked some of the swirl around the feedback that the FTC gave. And in the FTC world, there's rules and there's guidance. And guidance is what they gave around reviews, publishing, collecting, moderating. And we're very conservative. We, had a conversation with the FTC to make sure that we understood what they were talking about. So we're able to, ensure that the way that we collect and moderate reviews meets those guidelines. And so I think the swirl around that has died down a bit. And then sort of bucket two was the rule proposal that the FTC made in June around, banning bait and switch fees and fraudulent junk fees and surprise junk fees and requiring upfront disclosures of costs and conditions. That's when NADA got involved, and there was an 80-day comment period, and this was that particular rule proposal was based off of what the FTC said. They collected over 3 years, 300,000 complaints from consumers that sort of reference poor behavior from dealers in those categories. And so we provided some data on request to the NADA, just a cut of data from our site. Again, DealerRater kind of being Switzerland here, saying this is our data and this is what it says. It's a little different from what the FTC is saying, but the data that we pulled, this was 8 million reviews over 10 years worth of data, was that 94% of the reviews were positive, 6% negative, and you could sort of cut within there. Sales, franchise sales had the most positive. Service lane had the most negative. But that is the data that we sort of pulled together. And we look for things like bait and switch and junk fees and stuff like that. And I think like 1% of the negative reviews that we received during that time referenced those keywords. So, I think we'll see what happens with this. The FTC has gotten all the feedback, and NADA pulled together a lot of information and submitted a pretty robust document as part of their response. But, I think there's sort of concern from NADA and, of course, the broader industry that this is, the sort of the whole industry is being punished for the bad actions and the sins of a few. And I think that's the general criticism of the industry industry of what the FTC is doing. It'll be expensive for dealers to implement these new rules, or what's being required of these new rules. And the NADA has some great resources on their website, which I'm happy to send to you guys. You could post in the
send those over. We'll get them over in the forums.
But I think that's and it could make the process at the dealership to close a deal a little bit more complicated for consumers too. So, like everything, right? This is part of this will be an ongoing discussion. We'll see where it shakes out, and that's that particular situation. The last one is the December 9th piece, which is the FTC safeguards rule that they updated in 2021. The safeguard, I think the original one was from 2003. They updated it again in 2021 to broaden the definition of a financial institution. And thanks, Alex. So why it impacts automotive is they expanded the definition of a financial institution to include a finder, right? And so if you have a buyer and seller and then there's a price and a deal that's negotiated, you're considered a finder. And I think automotive and dealers sort of fell under that category. So I think that's where obviously the industry has spent a little bit of time understanding what does this mean. I think that's where there's some cost and again, some great resources on the NADA and FTC websites there as well around what does this mean. But it's coming up soon in almost a month, and there's some, technological and system upgrades and enhancements that dealers need to comply with, or that they've got to complete by then in order to fully comply with the new rule.
Some of the advice I've received, and we're actually going to have a show on December 9th with somebody who specializes in this. But some of the advice I've received is, as a company that needs to comply with some of this as well, is that you need to show you're making progress. It's not that you have to be in full compliance on that date, but definitely be working towards it and show your path and show your progress. And then, you won't get the $42 million fine, or whatever the fines will be at that point.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be something that rolls out over time. I think the changes, and I don't know the specifics of it, but I think the changes or the upgrades and enhancements that need to be pushed through, and again, not a technology expert in this regard, but is not something that's just easily implemented by buying a quick little software package that you can do in a day. So it's going to take some time and some cost. And again, it's sort of back to the bait and switch and junk fee issue and some of the reputation. I mean, there's work that the industry needs to do in order to comply with these things. I think it's finding the right balance between what's necessary and what's a bit of an overreach. And for us, DealerRater cars on the reputation side, I think we will always try to set the standard for trust and transparency when it comes to collecting content. That's first and foremost, literally the most important thing to me that I think about every day is how do we make sure that that's something that we stay true to with everything that we do, and including how we collect content, products that we build, how we talk to dealers about negative reviews that they get on our platform. So that's where we spend a lot of time and need to be a leader.
Yeah. Well, Jamie, congratulations on 20 years. And
yeah, that's awesome.
Next year we'll crack a beer with you for this one. Since you'll be old enough, according to Alex Vetter.
Years away from your 20th, but yeah, it's been a wonderful ride. In many ways, the journey's just beginning. I talked about all the cool stuff that we're working on with cars, is just to just go deeper and further with the integration and to power the voice of the customer for automotive, but to unlock ways that really help the cars platform stand apart. So that's what we're going to be focused on next year, in addition to a few other cool things that we're working on that will keep as a surprise for now. But
Well, I know I'm looking forward to it, and I'm going to send you an email after this because I'd love to see some more integration points between DealerRater and the DI websites. And I know you guys were working on something like that a while ago. I don't know where it's at this point. But yeah, I'll definitely reach out to you.
Yeah,
Definitely.
sounds good.
But yeah, again, I mean, 20 years, it's awesome. I'm sure maybe Chip will see a recording of this. So
I was like, maybe
hats off to Chip and
join me
the
for
original crew.
Yeah, no,
That'd be cool.
He's doing great. He sends his best. I was trying to see if I can get him to pop on for a little cameo, but
he's got fish to fry.
Yeah, exactly. He sends his best to you guys. He's always been a huge fan of yours and remembers the early days fondly. So
cool.
And I do as well. So
I like where Alex Vedder's head's at.
I can't see his comment.
Apparently does Drew. Oh, he wants to see if any OEMs are listening. He wants to help.
We'll get it out there as best as we can.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. We're coming for him.
All right, gentlemen. Thanks again, Jamie. Have a great weekend.
Thanks again. Appreciate it. You too.